And on to credit. Access to credit remains a major challenge for both individuals and SMEs. So contentious is the matter that there has been a back and forth in regulation seeking to address affordability through the introduction of the interest rate cap. Though the cap was repealed, there have been arguments on both sides of the divide, with banks claiming that the cap locked out SMEs, begging the question, just how do banks determine one's eligibility to access credit? Noah Kipkemboy has the answer.
Reduction of interest cap 3 years ago saw a cut on credit supply to the small and medium enterprises, most of which are classified as high-risk borrowers. According to the Kenya Bankers Association, during the 3-year period, bank lending to SMEs and companies declined by 1.9 trillion shillings, while lending to individuals declined by 5 trillion shillings. Going by this statistic, the abolishment of the red cap was the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel. So, how exactly do banks determine one's eligibility to access credit? According to KBA, banks access lenders using the 4 C's of credit, namely character, capacity, collateral, and conditions. An individual's character determines whether they will be disciplined enough to repay the loan.
There are times when an individual may have the capacity to repay the loan, but the intention was never there. And so you find that in spite of the capacity, still doesn't pay.
But character alone will not cut it. You need to have the capacity to honor your credit obligation, and this will look into where you are investing the money or your sources of income.
And that's when you look at, for example, the projections of the cash flows. So if it's a project, you're looking at the projections of the cash flows, and will those cash flows be adequate to not only meet the operational requirements of the project itself, but then have enough balance left to repay back the loan.
But not every investment you put your money into works out. And for that reason, the lender considers whether you have a collateral from which they can recover their money from.
In the event that you assess the first 2 C's, for example, and you find that the capacity is there, the character in terms of the previous track record of the individual and all that are okay. Supposing they do not turn out to be so, I need a fallback position. And that fallback position is normally a collateral. So in the unlikely event that there is a default, you have got something to fall back on. So it will either be a physical assets as collateral, maybe a guarantee or some other form of collateral.
The lender can also place conditions before lending to you that will safeguard their investments.
You can put conditions in the agreement that before you pay yourself, for example, dividends, or before you do the following, you ensure that first of all I'm paid back my amount. Or you can put other conditions in the agreement, for example, things like the customer should not do to ensure that your loan is safeguarded. Things like you cannot engage into some activities before the loan is fully repaid.
From the assessment of the 4 C's, lenders are able to develop a credit profile of a borrower, laying the foundations for a credit rating system which determine loan pricing.
So the better the credit rating of the entity, the lower the price. And as the credit rating, risk goes up, also you add on an enhanced risk margin to cover yourself for the likelihood of default. So basically, pricing is directly linked to the credit rating of the institution.
The lifting of the cap does not tamper with the risk profile whatsoever.
Their risk profile does not change, and therefore there will be no reason to go back and try to reprice them, because they were priced and they were found to be within the cap. So whatever price they are enjoying now, they'll continue enjoying, unless if the macroeconomic variables in the market change. And from what you have seen from the past and going forward and where we are currently, there is a projection of macroeconomic stability sustaining for quite some period of time.
So, the next time you consider getting credit from a bank, check your 4 C's and see whether they add up. No, keep